So a question for both of you, something we hear sometimes from students is that they're concerned that they might be wasting their major by going into ministry rather than getting like a high-powered career. Sometimes, even if that's not what students are thinking, sometimes that's what parents are kind of speaking into them. Don't waste 4 years of college. What would you guys say to somebody that's kind of struggling with that question? Am I wasting my college career, my major? Welcome, everyone. This is our Ask Me Anything panel with some business experts using their business skills and degree in the field doing ministry. We're really excited to have you either here live or watching this recording later. We're really excited just to get to share with you. Hannah and Bob are both just incredible, and they've been using their skills in some really amazing ways. Hannah is a little bit newer to the field, and Bob has been doing this for a long time, and we're so excited to get to hear from them today. My name is Melody. I am a GoCore coach and a mobilizer, which means that I talk to students every day about how you can use your degree, your passion, your skills in ministry overseas. I went overseas as right out of college. I was a dance major and used that in ministry. And so I'm excited to talk about a very different ministry path than the arts is in business, but also just an incredibly strategic and kind of an under talked about kind of way to do ministry.
So I'm, like Melody said, I'm Hannah. I'm currently in Zambia, Africa with my organization. I work for an organization called One Collective, and I've been here for about 8 months now. So almost catching up on a year, which is pretty crazy. It's flown by. My organization, One Collective, kind of their mission is to see that no one's invisible and that everyone has access to food, freedom, and forgiveness. And they do that through something called integrated community transformation, which is a very long word of just saying we like to do holistic ministry. So we look at people as a whole person, as spiritual, as physical, as emotional, all parts of the human. So we're very focused on relationship building and really seeing what's in a community and how we can use those strengths and assets and resources to better transform the community. And so where I come in and what I do specifically with business is I think my title is like entrepreneurship advocate or something like that. But what I do is I work with a group of 9 women and we do a business program. So I teach business skills to them and kind of do business training, very basic. So we teach them business skills to kind of grow their businesses. And then alongside that, we also do discipleship in our program. So we're constantly sharing about Jesus, and the program that we have is fully involved in the Bible, and everything is biblically based. So that's one aspect of my ministry that I do and that we do as a community here. We also have a men's program that also does business training, but I specifically work with the women in our community in small groups and teaching them business skills. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Hannah. And Bob, what about you?
Well, my career, my name is Bob Faber, and I'm the president of an organization called SALT Ventures, which my wife and I started in Bulgaria after having served there for 7 years with a traditional church planting mission. We noticed that there was a gap in the ministry landscape, which we thought needed to be filled, and that was a bridge building organization, and that's what we established. Salt Ventures' motto is to inhabit secular spaces for Christ. So we have seen the value of entering into work with local secular institutions, companies, schools, governments, and then bringing churches along into those projects and try to share the gospel through those means.
That's awesome. Thanks, Bob. And Salt Ventures is a GoCore partner, and we love getting to send GoCore students to you guys. So just to kind of set the stage for this whole conversation, I think, Bob, I'd love to hear this answer from you. What does it even mean to use business in missions and in ministry? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, it's often confusing for people when you tell them, well, I'm in business. They say, wait, I thought you were in missions, and because the traditional, or at least for the last 50 years or so, or maybe 60 or 70 years, the traditional view of missions has been more organized church work that missionaries would enter into and either partner with a church that exists in a host country or establish a new church in a country where there aren't any. And that's, of course, an integral, essential part of missions. But along the way, there are also many other parts of life where the gospel can be shared. If we spend 5 days a week working, well, why not try to introduce the gospel in those 5 days when people are working? And so you can, if you think of the holistic approach to bring in what Hannah is doing, you think of the holistic approach of sharing the gospel in every aspect of life. Business becomes a very big part of everybody's day and a natural venue in which you would have conversations with people and the opportunity to be an example to them and a witness of your faith.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And that's what I love about using business as a ministry, is that just like many other ways, it's kind of a kind of ministry people don't think about as much. Just like for me, going to use dance was a ministry that a lot of people didn't think about. And that's something we're seeing in the mission world, is that it's really not only can you use other skills other than just like church planting, but it's really valuable to use lots of these other skills like business or arts or engineering or social media management. Like there's so many different ways to do missions right now, because we all have a place in the world of missions and ministry. So Hannah, I would love to ask you this. Why did you decide to use your degree for missions and to go to Zambia rather than just getting kind of a traditional job?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the short answer is this is where God led me, and I didn't want to say no to God. So this is where it led me. But also, even being in school, I knew I didn't really want to go into like the corporate world of business. I knew that wasn't going to be for me. I didn't want to do just like a 9-to-5 in an office kind of setting. That's just not using my strengths and utilizing those. And that is totally fine for some people, and some people, that's where God's calling them, into the corporate world. Just like Bob was talking about, we need to talk about Jesus everywhere. It's not just on the missions field. So if that's your mission field, the corporate world, that's great. But that's just not where God was calling me. And so it was really just a kind of, I didn't know this is where I was going to go, but God just really led me here. And I knew that I didn't want to go corporate. So I was trying to figure out what could other aspects of business look like. I loved the aspect of international business and doing international nonprofit. And so combining kind of those things of international nonprofits and my business background and my degree, it led me overseas. I didn't know I was going to be here, but here I am.
Yeah, I love that. So as kind of a follow-up question to that, you're saying I didn't know that I was going to do that, but I love it. Like, how then did you decide? And how did you know that you were ready right out of college? Like, did you ever worry that you didn't know enough yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question too. I definitely, as I started looking into it more and what it could look like to be abroad, and eventually finding GoCore, and then through GoCore, One Collective, it really just became a moment of like, okay, if not now, then when? Now was kind of the perfect time. Like I'm not married. I don't have kids. I have nothing that was holding me down in the States in a sense. And so it was really just like the perfect time. It was an easy transition to go from school to, okay, let's start seeing what it could look like overseas. So really the timing of everything was really perfect to be like, when am I going to have this opportunity again to spend 2 years or 2 years plus overseas? So the timing was really perfect. And then, yeah, God just kept affirming and confirming throughout the whole process of like, yeah, this is where I want you. This is what I have for you right now. And are you going to take that step of faith and say yes? Which is terrifying when God asks us to step out upon the water. That's my life verses, and my favorite scriptures are when Jesus calls Peter out onto the water, and Peter goes out and steps out in faith and walks on the water, but he starts to drown and Jesus immediately saves him. And sometimes that's what God does to us. He calls us out onto the waters, into the unknown, and we have to take that step of faith. And that doesn't mean it's perfect, and it doesn't mean we don't fail, because we do. But Jesus is right there to pick us back up. So it was really a combination of a lot of things, but really just the timing of like, yeah, I have the education. I want to use the education in a setting that helps people, and the timing of being done with school and not having anything set up. And then also just God calling me to it. It was kind of a combination of all three of those things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Hannah. I love that verse and that image, because sometimes it's like you do just have to take that step. You don't always know whether you're ready or prepared, but you take the step and you just have to trust that God is going to catch you, be in front of you, be behind you, be leading you, like be with you the whole time. So I love that perspective. Thanks, Hannah. So when we're talking about business as a missions, often that does mean working in kind of the secular world. So Bob, could you talk a little bit about like, can a secular experience still be called missions? Like, how does something like that promote the gospel?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start just by telling you a little bit of a story, because I think through real life experience, we, get those aha moments that demonstrate for us the things that we really can't even imagine ourselves until they happen. We started a small business in Bulgaria almost accidentally. A few years after we got there, because someone challenged us to try to have a business that was run legally. There's a lot of corruption and a lot of distortion in the business environment there. And so we started a relocation company. And over a period of about 13 months, we had 8 people come to the Lord through that company. And some of them were employees, some were clients, some were vendors. And so we thought, in our little constituency, this tiny little company, it was having an impact for the kingdom. And we realized that people don't just need to hear the gospel, they need to see the gospel, and when they're living, around and Christians and rubbing shoulders with people who are trying to live a life of faith, even though we're not perfect and we make mistakes and they see our mistakes, it's more real. And I'll just fast forward to a little bit later than that. We started a church, and after a year, that church had over 150 people in it, and half of them were truly unchurched people who had come to faith. And every single one of them had their first experience of getting to a Christian outside of the church. Either they were working together, or they were on a sports team together, or they were in school together, or, so they were all of these secular experiences they had, where the Christians showed up as different. And so there's this tremendous opportunity for us, which we just don't think of, because we just don't imagine things that way until we're in them and they happen.
Yeah, that's incredible, Bob, just to hear those results after a year, 8 coming to faith, after another year, 150 people in the church. That's incredible, and shows just so much how like there are so many people that just need someone to go and to share the love of Christ with them. They just need that invitation. They need that person.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how you and your team have been able to do that. So a story for both of you, a question for both of you. Could you each share a short story about how you've seen God work through your ministry, work through your work through using business in this way? Bob, let's start with you this time.
Sure.
I know you just shared a story.
Yeah, I'll dive a little bit deeper into one of these stories. In our company, we had a language school, and we needed another teacher because we had a lot of clients. And one of our employees said, well, I have a friend who I'd really love to recommend, but she's had a rough background and she's made some mistakes, and she just needs an opportunity. So I interviewed her friend, and she was used to being rejected because she had some problems, and maybe people didn't trust her, and so I asked her what she wanted to accomplish, and she said, well, I'm trying to change my life. And so I said, okay, well, when can you start? And she said, wait, are you offering me a job? And I said, well, you just said you wanted to change your life. I'm just opening the door for you to do that. And so she joined us. And that young woman was a great teacher, and she translated for a lot of Christian work that we had, and eventually she became a Christian by hearing the gospel during the course of her work. And a couple months later, she came to me and said, Bob, I have a friend who you need to hire. And I said, why? And she said, well, he's not a Christian, and I've tried to talk to him, but I think if he comes to work here, he'll become a Christian because he'll see all the Christians around us. And so, it was that organic connection in community, that became the tool that the Lord used, to make the sharing of the gospel effective.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Wow, I love that. And I just can just imagine for that young one, we were like, okay, cool, when can you start? Her just being so overwhelmed after being rejected many times. So that's so incredible that you were able to do that, and that this ministry, this workplace was able to do that for her.
Yeah.
And that she was able to change her life because she had that opportunity. So that's awesome. Thank you. Hannah, what about a story from you?
Yeah, I love hearing that story too, Bob. I love what you're talking about of like rubbing shoulders with Christians, with other Christians. I think that's a great visual and really beautiful. So yeah, my little story that I have. So the women that I work with right now, we have 9 women, and kind of how our program is structured. It's a year-long program. And the first 5 months or so is some business training, strictly business training. And then after 5 months, they get a small loan. So they get a micro loan for their businesses. And then we continue more classes and business training as well after that. But before we even started this whole program, we were connected with one of the women. Her name's Albertina, and she's a firecracker. I love her. She is just so adamant about seeing her community transformed. She wants to be part of that transformation. And those are the kind of people we kind of really want to grab onto because we want to see them transform their community. And so we got connected to Albertina, and she kind of helped us connect with the other 8 women in our community that are now part of our program. And so she's also part of the program too, but she's kind of taken on this leadership role. So we're really kind of fostering this relationship and this leadership in her through this program. And so she is a chicken farmer, chicken seller, really. So she buys chicks, day-old chicks, and then she raises them for 3 to 4 weeks, and then she'll start selling them in the community. And so she'll sell, she was before the program, buying 1 batch at a time. So she was buying 100 chickens, 100 chicks at a time, and then selling them, and then buying another batch, and keep going like that. And so through kind of our business program, she's learned more of how to find new customers. In our program, we do very basic level things because these are women who have never had business training before. They are very inherently business trained, they have a lot of experience in business, but we're just kind of putting words to these things and kind of expanding on them. So she's learning how to find new customers. She's learning how to set her prices for the product that she's selling. She's doing all sorts of promotions and things like that to sell her chickens. And with the loan that she was able to get through our program, she now has 2 batches at a time of chickens. So she starts with 1 batch, she waits 2 weeks, and then she'll buy her second batch. So she always has chickens that are ready to sell. She's always has them on hand. And that's just kind of the power of our business program. And then just the power of her tenacity too, of using the things that she's learning and applying that to her own business and to her own life. And she has just been so important and integral to our program to kind of share with the other women and encourage them. And she is also just such a strong woman of faith too. And so it's been so wonderful to have her and really see her blossom in this sort of setting. And that's really why we're here, is to find these people and bring that out in them and show them and give them the confidence. That's why we call it an empowerment program, because we're empowering them to take hold of their own life, their own faith, and encourage others in the program as well. So that I love that story of her and seeing how she's grown in these past few months as a leader and as a businesswoman. And I just get to kind of help foster that knowledge that's kind of already there for her. So yeah, that's a little snippet of something that we do in our program.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that it's called an empowerment program, because like, it's not like you're coming in telling her this is how to raise chickens and this is what to do and here's how to fix your life. You're coming into empowering them to make a better life for themselves. You're giving them some tools, some very practical, tangible, like, this is the best way to find new customers. But you're trusting that like they are empowered with all of the skills that they need already. You're just kind of handing them a little bit of extra encouragement and skill and development that way. So I love that kind of model and approach. And I love that you're getting to build those relationships and empower these awesome women to do these jobs. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. One of the things that was really great, Hannah, about the way you guys work and the way you're describing it is that, psychologists will tell us, for people who are achievers, you want to, it's very useful to involve them in a cause, and then they're usually more open to other things that you want to share with them. But it's almost like you guys are servants entering into their cause and, creating community that way in a, sort of the upside down sort of approach that just is winsome and wonderful, and effective.
Yeah.
Really,
and that now,
really
like, Albertina is, sorry, Bob.
Go ahead.
Like, now Albertina, when she finishes this program, she's going to be able to go and train other women. Like, you're empowering her to like take that even further. So I love that.
Yeah.
So how did the skills that you guys each learned in school and working in the States, how did you translate those skills to working overseas? Were they pretty easily transferable, or did you have to kind of learn new skills in a different way overseas?
Well, you want me to handle that first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I had a whole career in America, business career in America before going overseas. And a lot of skills are transferable, but the cultural setting sort of gives you a different prism through which these things are reflected. And so, there's always a learning curve in seeing what works and what doesn't. And that leads to lots of awkward and embarrassing situations it did for me, because I kind of thought I knew what I was doing, but then I would figure out that, they do it differently. And there's a reason why they do it differently, because the context is different, requires, some different approaches. But there were two ways in which I felt like having a chance to, sort of apply skills from America overseas really do sort of turbocharge your experience. And one is that it demands flexibility. From the very first day, you begin to realize, they look at things differently. And so you need to think about different ways of either communicating or implementing your skills so that they fit in the context that you're living in. And the second is adversity is a great teacher. And, you may not be dropped into a war zone, but just living in another country where you struggle both culturally and sometimes linguistically, often linguistically as well, creates adverse situations. And struggling your way through those, really crystallizes strategies that work. So in those two ways, I think are really big impacts on the whole experience that are a great benefit for anyone who does it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Bob. Hannah, for you, like coming right out of school, do you think that the skills you learned in college, did those translate well to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, Bob hit it right on the nail. Like he really, oh, make sure I'm not frozen here. Okay. He really, yeah, I mean, flexibility and adversity, those are both amazing things. I will say, to add on to those too, I think, I know in college, and especially in business classes, group projects will be the death of you, but they are very, very beneficial in a cross-cultural context, because it really does help you work with people who are different than you and have different opinions and different mindsets than you. Maybe they're not different culturally, maybe they're still American, but you'll have different opinions. And that has been really beneficial to have that experience from school and from business school and translating that here. And then also, like with the team that you work here, like I have a team of Americans, like we have to work together and learn how to work together. And so your group projects are going to help you figure that out very quickly. So that's one thing that translates really well. But I really like the flexibility of what Bob was saying, is using the things that you've learned and translating it to a culture. It's going to look different. Some things will look similar, but a lot of things will look very different. And really for me and what we do, it's going very basic, like going back to the basics of business. And sometimes that's the best way to do it, is just not overthink it, not over business it. Don't use all of this jargon that no one really understands if you're just in the business world, but using the concepts that you've learned in business school and applying those to your context. So it's not necessarily the nitty gritty, business terms. It's the overall concepts of them that still apply anywhere. So.
Those basic concepts are going to apply to a lot of different things. And I loved what you said about group projects. I discovered that as well. I did not like group projects in college, but like, it's how the real world works. You always got to work with other people. So it is really good. Current college students, have fun with those group projects. I've got a couple more questions, but just as a reminder to our attendees, you're welcome to put a question into the little Q&A or the chat if you can't find the Q&A box, and we will answer those. Sometimes we hear from students that are like, well, why would I go through a mission organization, a sending organization, if I'm just going to work in a business? Why wouldn't I just move to a country and get like a normal job and minister to people that way? What would you say to that, Bob? What's the advantage of going through a sending organization like yours?
Well, there are some practical reasons. One is that it's not as easy as you may think to just move somewhere and get a job. The process of moving to Bulgaria and getting a job, for example, takes about 12 months. And that's if you know what job it is and have all of the requisite documentation and licenses and contracts in order to do it. So it's difficult if you want to have a serious job, to actually make that happen. It takes time and it takes planning. An organization like ours, we set these up in advance. And so, we're ready when people want to take advantage of it. But it's not as if it's, you can just do it on your own if you chose to. We had one person who described it as saying, we can help you accomplish the things you want to do that you couldn't do no matter how much money you have. And in some ways, that's true. So that's one practical reason why you would want to use an organization. The second is community. Life is busy for everyone and everywhere. And life in a foreign country is harder than life at home. I mean, it just takes more time to do even the basic things. And so community is ever more important just to help you get through the everyday matters of life. So those are two reasons you'd want to use an organization instead of doing it on your own.
Yeah.
I did it on my own, by the way. I did work overseas as a businessman, so I have the experience of doing both.
Yes. But you also waited a little bit longer before you went overseas, didn't you?
That's right.
By the time you went overseas, you've been doing this in the States for a long time.
That's
Going
right.
straight out of college probably would have been a lot harder.
No, I'm sure it would have been.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think those are some really wise words. Community is so important. That was something that I struggled with when I was overseas. I was on the team and I was working in community, and it was still really hard to have that community and those friends. So that's where I was really grateful for my studying organization as well. So a question for both of you. Something we hear sometimes from students is that they're concerned that they might be wasting their major by going into ministry rather than getting like a high-powered career. Sometimes, even if that's not what students are thinking, sometimes that's what parents are kind of speaking into them. Don't waste 4 years of college. What would you guys say to somebody that's kind of struggling with that question? Am I wasting my college career, my major?
Yeah, I definitely got that question when I was like getting ready to go overseas. Even when your parents are very loving and well-intentioned, they can sometimes say things where you're like, okay, well, hold on. So I would say to that is one, the experiences that you're going to have overseas and using your degree overseas, even if you don't stay past 2 years, it's going to look great on a resume. Like, you're going to have so much experience. You're going to have so much, like, this is just the question you tell your grandparents, like, it's going to look great on my resume. You have lots of cross-cultural experience is really looked for, I think, in the business world. Bob can probably speak into that a little more than I can, but being able to say that you spent 2 years overseas and know how to communicate with people with different opinions and a different background, and use your degree right away from school it's just valuable experience that you won't be able to get really anywhere else. And so that's one very like practical answer to like wasting your major is you're not really wasting it because you're still using your degree. You're still using the things that you've learned. You're just doing it in a cross-cultural setting. So that's one part to that answer. And then the second part too, which kind of goes with that, is you are going to develop skills overseas and through GoCore, through whatever setting organization you go with. Not going to be a waste. It's not going to be you just sitting around doing nothing and just in a new culture. You're going to be working, you're going to be doing things. You're not just sitting there on vacation. You will be using the skills that you've learned, and you will be developing new skills for sure. So that's a little bit of my answer. I don't know, Bob, if you have another answer.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And it actually makes me think of something that's maybe, this is not directly business related, but it reminds me of something that the boxer Mike Tyson said. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that's true in boxing. Everyone goes into the boxing ring with a plan, but then you take the first hit, you start to wonder whether your plan is the right direction. Well, education is a little bit like that. Education is all analytical and theoretical until you graduate and get into your job, and then it becomes applied. And the application of what you've learned, in real life situations, boy, it's invaluable, because that's where your experience begins and what your career is built upon. So spending your first 2 years out of college, in any sort of situation that would be challenging, can do nothing but sharpen your skills and give you an edge that would be hard to get any other way, maybe impossible to get any other way. So I'm a huge believer in GoCore. I think that what they're encouraging graduates to do is, not just a great idea. I think it's the future of missions, really. I think it's like hearkening back to the past, because the earliest missionaries didn't have organizational support infrastructures like we have today, because the world was a different place and they took much longer to get distances. But what they did have was the ability to sink roots in a local culture and face all of the life situations that local people faced. And I think that the kind of experience that's offered through GoCore is very similar to that sort of experience, and it's invaluable for someone who really wants to live a life of service.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Bob. I think that's a great transition into talking
Yeah.
a little bit more
Yeah.
about GoCore.
So people like Hannah are my heroes.
Yeah, Hannah is my hero as well. And so what we do through GoCore is that we send out people like Hannah overseas for 2 years to use their degree and their passion in the mission field. We partner with a dozen different sending organizations and have over 100 different placements where you can use any skill and passion and degree that you have, from dance to business to engineering to nursing. There are placements where you can use those passions overseas. You can work with women that are being trafficked. You can work with refugees. You can work with business owners. You can work at a coffee shop. There are so many different options. And GoCore really helps to get you from here in school to there in 6 months. We really guide you through that process. We're able to get you overseas in this kind of shorter amount of time because we've been doing this for 12 years now. So we are really experienced at helping you get there. You will walk through the whole process with a GoCore coach, someone who is there to like help you personally go through this experience, to help you personally kind of discern what is the best placement for me. I'm interested in like a lot of different things. What do I do? Your GoCore coach will help talk you through that. Your GoCore coach will also help talk you through when, you know, suddenly your parent is like, you're going to be wasting your degree. I don't want you to go. And your GoCore coach will just help you kind of process through that and figure out like how to move forward and know what God is calling you to do. So Hannah, I would love to ask you, like, what was your GoCore experience like as a goer? You've been on the field almost a year now. Just what was the whole process like for you?
Yeah, I have only great things to say about GoCore. I think and Melody touched on this a little bit, the aspect of community, and Bob was talking about too, why you should go with a sending organization. It's so important to have that community and that support system, and being able to have someone like a GoCore coach or someone through GoCore talk through some of these fears that you have or anxiety that you have was so important to me. And it was also important to have someone to kind of kick me to be like, why aren't you saying yes yet? Like, look at all these things that God is lining up to you. Like, why aren't you, like, this is what he has for you, and to kind of push you towards it. And then also just, I had a lot of fear and anxiety of support raising. I really didn't want to be support raised when I wanted to go overseas. But the system of GoCore and how you learn about support raising, and you learn about how biblical it is and how scripturally based it is something I don't think you can get from any other organization like GoCore. It really is such a comfort to have that system and to have someone walk alongside you through the support raising process, through the conversations with your parents, through conversations with supporters and friends, and all of those. So it was really an amazing experience for me. And I'm so blessed and lucky to have been a goer. I'm still a goer. And I hope that my story can encourage some of you as well who are interested in becoming a goer, that GoCore is amazing. And all of the sending organizations that they're partner with, like SALT, are also 100% amazing and are just so full of Jesus. And yeah, it's just been a great experience, and it's still a great experience. It's not over yet.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Yeah, I think you really hit on why GoCore exists, and I'm so glad that you've had a really good experience through us. We're really excited about what you're doing. So we did just get one question into our question and answer section. So I think I'm going to ask this to Bob. The question that the student asked is that she is a sophomore. So she is wondering what she can be doing now to prepare for using her business degree in the future. She specifically asks if you would recommend getting business and mission experience over summer breaks and stuff like that. So what would you say?
Well, I think that was the first thing that came to mind for me was maybe find a short-term trip that you could go on if you're interested in a particular place or a particular idea. And that would give you an opportunity to just put your toe in the water and see how it feels. And then you can follow it up from there. But the more experience you can get, the more familiarity you can develop with the possibilities will open the horizons for you and give you more room to dream.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Bob. And we do on GoCore, we have a selection of different short-term trips that our partners offer, including being an intern on Hannah's team over the summer. So I'm going to put that link here in the chat, and you're welcome to check that out. So I think just to finish, I'm going to ask one final question to Hannah. What is your favorite thing about what you get to do in Zambia, Hannah?
Oh, that is a tough question. That is tough because there's so many amazing things that I love. I think my favorite thing is building relationships. And when you build those relationships and you're teaching someone something or discipling someone, and that light bulb just goes off of understanding of, oh, this is what you mean, or, oh, this is how this could look, is one of just my favorite things of just, and then I do the same thing of when you're living overseas, you're still a learner. You're learning everything. You're learning the language, you're learning the culture, and you should be learning. And so when I go into my meetings, I'm constantly learning from my women too. So I also have those light bulb moments of, oh, this is why this is working, or this is why this is done this way. And so I think that's one of my favorite things is when I get those moments and when I see those moments in other people's eyes and faces too, of like, oh, okay, we're on the same page together. Like, I think there's just something so special about that. And it all goes to relationships and building those relationships with people. And that's really what it's all about. So I think that's probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a great kind of wrap up is that, yeah, it is all about the relationships that you're building on the field. That's why we go, is to build relationships and to share the gospel from those relationships. There are a ton of different ways that you can serve through GoCore using your business skills, specifically from being an administrative assistant for media ministries to being a business specialist in a medical clinic. You could be doing entrepreneurship training like Hannah is doing. You could be a food production specialist, a hospitality and steward manager, a marketing assistant, a nonprofit manager, a social media manager. There are so many different incredible ways that you could be using those skills. So if you're watching this and you're a senior, I want to encourage you to reach out to GoCore to ask us questions and then to apply. You do not have to be like absolutely confident that this is what you want to do to apply. I'm sure Hannah would agree that like when she hit apply, it was really a maybe, let's see what the Lord has. I know that was true for me also when I hit apply, when I was going to be a goer. I wasn't even sure I wanted to go at that point. I was just doing it because the Lord had so clearly put it in front of me. So if you're a senior, apply. We could have you overseas by September of next year, if that's what the Lord has for you. And if you're not a senior, reach out and talk to a coach anyway. We would love to answer your questions. And we would love to just talk with you about like how you can be preparing now. I have put some links here in the chat, the application link, the link to talk with a coach. And I've also put my personal contact information here. You are welcome to email or text me. My email is melody@gocore.org. Following GoCore on social media is also a great way to keep in touch with us. We have a Facebook and Instagram, a TikTok. We've got all the social media at this point. So go ahead and follow us.